Yeah.
Right.
Good morning, Dr. Brad.
Morning, Kurt. I wanted you to know I gave you an opportunity to shine by not cleaning my coffee cup.
I think we're about on this. I cleaned mine, but I didn't clean the inside much.
I
So
didn't clean it at all. I wanted you to have the opportunity
oh,
to.
thank you for the deference. You're sweet. All right. So today is Saturday, April 13th, 2024. We have working sessions scheduled, but Brad and I have just a quick thing to talk about. We had something really important to talk about. I know, because we talked about talking about it on Saturday,
Friday.
and now we don't remember what it was.
Oh yeah.
During the week we had a good piece because Brad talked to Dr. Jones. So we had a good piece on the grammars. Like there's this other dimension to the grammars that we talked about. So I thought I would pull up our periodic table of the grammars and add another page to that, which I think is quite charming.
Did you publish that video?
I don't remember publishing any videos this week.
Okay.
I will publish that video. Then so we had that one. There was the other thing we talked about and I've forgotten. And then this topic we want to bring about today, which is the parallels between what we seem to be subconsciously doing and what happened during the Roman Empire. So let's talk about your and I guess it's whose idea?
Noah.
Noah's idea.
Noah's looking to make uh, essentially a training facility for men on his on the a vineyard that he wants to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to get 10 to 100 guys to live there. And I'm like, okay. And then train them into science and then provide counseling and guidance and coaching to get them so they have a advantage in the marketplace, all the marketplaces.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to generalize that. And then I became aware of the function, which is having read Gibbon so many years ago. And then Gibbon talked about at the end of the Roman Empire, the fellows were opting out of military service and joining monasteries like crazy. And I'm like, this is what's occurring, which is the men having lost confidence in the institutions of cultural production to advance their own life, opted out and circumvented that opportunity and created new institutions of cultural production, which they participated in, which is the monasteries. And we are essentially, Noah's proposing the exact same process, and it's just a matter of we are going to circumvent the institutions of cultural production which have been inhabited or possessed by our cultural enemies.
Well, that just leads to you start with a monastery, and then you end up with education as a product of the monastery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which ends up in transformation of the polity.
What's interesting about it is there's another circumvention there, which is the real estate market, which is all the young fellows who are trying to make their living are getting bilked by rent. And it's like, okay, we can circumvent that by providing housing for them in these facilities where they can save their money for their futures.
Mm-hmm.
So they are able to capitalize. And it's like the capitalization function is what we're all interested in, is accumulation as opposed to being debt slaves or whatever kind of slaves that we don't want to be. And so that's the opportunities will be self-evident as preferred over the existing opportunities in the social structure.
Right. So, I thought I could do a business plan for that pretty easily. So, my primary concern is that monasteries were largely self-sufficient because they were agrarian producers.
Yes.
it's not difficult to put up an agrarian production for 100 guys. That's not difficult at all. It's just that food production takes time, right? And we are used to not spending that time any longer. Does that make sense?
That's right.
Right. The second thing is that where in the past that was all you had to do. That we today really have to have some services, which is water, power,
Yes.
and telecom. But when you distribute that across 100 guys, that's not really that, because it's
Trivial.
that's really not too much. I mean, it's bandwidth is overly expensive in the US, but that's a fixable problem over time. So, and then you have the problem of needing some income.
Yes.
And so the folks still need to produce enough income to it's sort of like having a college job, right? You know,
That's right. You'll need to work and you'll need to pay some rent.
Right, need to pay some rent. And unlike college, it's not like you've got to go through 10 hours of classes a day, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not that kind of thing. So, I mean, I can see how this works out financially, as long as there's employment to be had for 100 guys within some distance of
Well,
it.
you could do it like this. You could create a 100-man facility in which say 60 are permanent residents and 40 are guys who are coming for a special event, right? For a special training session, and they can rotate in and out as training and specialized training for short periods of time.
Yeah, but now you've created a cash flow dependency that creates fragility and the stability of the entity. So,
Yep.
you know, there's a sweet spot probably around 60 to 80, which is where you have enough income. You don't need a lot of income per capita, but the expenses per capita are balance out. So
Yep.
I suppose that's probably. I mean, this is one of those things where you, me, and Brandon sit around in a room for an afternoon, and I just write it all down, and we'll figure it out.
You say write, but you never write. You always type.
Okay, type it all down.
And is the 3 men enter, 3 men leave?
You know, whenever I start a business, I have a business model I work from, right? It's enormous spreadsheet that tells me everything, right? I mean,
Right.
And whenever I buy a company, I model it in this thing, and then I try to figure out what I can do with it to make more money than it does, which is usually not very hard because most.
Also, and so I mentioned for the purposes of the audiences, this is to be franchisable, a replicatable system.
Right, we have to get it down so it's something that we can do. Unlike learning how to run a McDonald's, right? It does, you know, we're asking people to know quite a bit of stuff, right? So the difference is that just as universities aren't really necessary anymore, because you could take the top best 10 professors in any discipline and they could manage college remotely for, you know, zillions of people, right? You're really talking about not the professors, but just the people who grade the papers.
Yes.
Is the problem now. It's not the quality of the professor, it's the people who grade the papers. So and no, grading the papers is what produces the people in the different monasteries that actually trains themselves to be as good as the professor. In other words, you have this 3-tiered system. So we could distribute the ability to the education on what we do and how to manage this kind of system, plus on the natural law. We could teach that
So
relatively.
my functionality of understanding, which is to say that Most guys don't need to know the science. They need passing knowledge, which is minimal. They need opportunities.
Yeah, I would say that they need nobody needs the science, they need the Constitution.
That's right. Well, so we're in agreement. So it's a
That's
minimal
that's
level of
equivalent to a
education.
Bible. It's basically a Bible.
We agree. Natural law,
You know?
and it's religious in its functionality, which
Yeah.
is kind of weird because it's not. This is interesting because it's like we were talking about modal verbs yesterday or last week, and it's must. Unavoidable is must.
Yes.
And that's where we are operating with the Constitution because it's legally binding and it is just natural law and it's gravity. You can't escape by any human means
Mhm.
that we have at our disposal.
Yes. What did I work on this week that was along those lines? You see, it's must. There's the grammars, the Constitution. Oh, I'm working on the issue of I'm trying to do a video. It's called The Last Word on the Electoral College, because
Okay.
it's just a marketing game for getting our ideas out there. But since
Mhm.
there's a debate of the Electoral College, I'm doing this video that points out that it's really to get commonality and concurrency, empiricism, legitimacy, and consent, right? So I'm trying to put that out there. So I'm putting a video out with these, writing a script for a video that has these terms in it, and explaining why the Electoral College has to exist. Now, what people don't like is that our ancestors were quite conscious of the competency hierarchy being the same
Right.
as the responsibility hierarchy. In other words, demonstrated competency, right, was by evidence of responsibility, right? You can't demonstrate competency any other way than by the accumulation of responsibility. You can't.
That's right.
And so that's the only empirical evidence. So while they sought to give, Jefferson in particular is the force behind this, because I'm not sure the rest of them were so behind it, as many people as possible who were also responsible,
Mhm.
right? And so now what we have is a lot of people who are participating, but not enough of them are responsible.
It's amazing.
And the second thing that happens is when you're a farmer, you're a small business owner, and it's a hard business. Farmers are hard people, right? Right? And they also understand people and animals are the same.
Right.
Sort of like Brandon and his dog training, right?
Yes.
The
Yes.
people are
It's the
just like
exact same thing.
the exact same thing. And so you have these environmental factors that positively train you to make positive decisions, responsible decisions.
Right.
With the Industrial Revolution, we developed large classes of people who were left the farm, who were no longer either responsible, nor were they environmentally trained.
That's right.
Right. Then we developed the managerial state. And so then we added people to the state who were likewise.
Oh my.
And then we added the credentialist state instead of the experienced state, right? Because most of our people used to come from the military and industry in government, but now they're just off the street. And so what happens is you have this problem of the curve of people in the market, right? Meaning the people who are responsible. That's what a market means. You're responsible because you're surviving in the market. And the people not in the market,
Right.
it's large. And
Excuse me. I don't want to tie that to Luke's work, which has to do with environmental pressures. So
Right.
not in the market is not sensitive to environmental pressures and not responsive and not being crafted by.
Yes. So you're detached. This is much of Luke's basic premise, right? Is if you are unaware of these factors, you know, out of sight, out of mind, right? And then you combine that with idle hands and idle minds make ill will. You've got the recipe for what we have today. And
Great.
well,
I said great.
and so of course, Luke is right as always, but so if you look at that, we have a huge irresponsible population in the country that's allowed to participate. Second, we have a group of a population in the education, academy, media, finance, and the government who are rent seekers on those people who are not responsible. And so the way they keep them happy is not by assisting them in becoming responsible, but in taking control so that those people are not responsible. In other words, they're accelerating their irresponsibility.
Right. So I would say pandering to their preferences for domination.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, so frustrating. So frustrating.
It's perfectly frustrating, which is intended to do. It's supposed to make you uncomfortable so that you want to do something different.
Yeah.
And it's working so well.
Yes. Anyway,
transformational is what we're working on. It's transformational function.
yeah.
And so I related, when I spoke about circumvention, I'm thinking in terms of our good professor Carol Quigley's work on the evolution of civilization, which is the only way out of the age of conflict is accept the political solution offered by the elites that they prefer so they can dominate us forever until the thing winds down, or circumvention, which is what we're talking about, because the other ways are out because they own all the other institutions of cultural production and they're going to use them against you.
So this is what I wanted to talk about this week. Thank you.
Oh, what's that?
So there's three options, not two.
There is three options.
Right. There is surrender.
Yeah. That's
Is
not acceptable. That's not an option.
There is circumvention. There is defeat, civil war.
No, defeat and surrender are the same.
No, you can defeat the other guy.
Oh,
revolution.
Yeah, I understand you. That's a victory. That's not defeat.
Okay, victory. There's victory. Okay, sorry. I didn't realize the duality of interpretation there. On the ambiguity of the man who specializes in disambiguation being ambiguous. All right, and then of course the last option is separation. Now separation. My problem here is the relationship between evasion. That's evasion. What'd you call it? Circumvention and separation. Now the question is, can you do these? All right, or are these the equivalent of a kibbutz? In other words,
oh no, I see it as no. I point to the Pacific Northwest people and their intentionality and aggregating for political control. It's all about power. There's only power. There's no kibbutzing.
Right. So it's the same thing I've read into libertarians, though, is this belief that you're going to have this society that isn't as equally as militant as the society that wants to deprive you of that freedom and opportunity, right? I mean, you know.
Yeah, no, it's warrior monks, man.
Yeah,
it's not friendly monks that are as peaceful and incapable of
right.
resistance.
And so, and then there are a couple others. One of we could adopt the Jewish and Chinese strategy, which is diasporic, because we'll be fine anywhere, right? But we'll become diasporic. But then we are in the same problem the Jews and the diasporic Chinese are, which is
Well, yeah, that won't work. Diasporasm won't work.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm trying to paint the field of opportunities, which
I understand you.
to
Sorry.
prevent people from making assumptions that are false. All right, there are fields of opportunity.
Hmm.
Right. So I, of course, people, you'll see this throughout the conservatives, and you do not see it in the progressives. It's a conservative defect, I'll say, is that the tendency, because conservatives have agency and they are disagreeable, meaning they count on themselves, not others. Because conservatives are politically with political alliances like women are with their friendship alliances. Women actually have very few friends because their tolerance for variation is too small in the factors. Men have a lot of friends because their tolerance for variation among men is high, but their toleration for variation in politics is low. Right? So this is why conservatives are always fucked up, right? Because they can't overcome this feminine instinct. All right, is that we have to be on the same page exactly, rather than we have to be going in about the right direction. The left, which is feminine and agreeable, doesn't care about they care. The feminine cares about interpersonal friendship because it's mostly psychological, and they want limited variation. But politically, they don't care about variation. They only care about going the same direction. Right? So the herd can work, whereas the packs are always weak compared to the herd, right? Unless they actually overcome the pack problem and become a nation, right? And they actually act on an army and become a set of alliances or federation. I should have said federation to start with. So, so the reason conservatives fail is this need to believe that you're right and that what you understand is right because you need to be in control. Whereas the left doesn't need to be control; they just need to run with the herd. And so this is
So it's
why
what you would call it purity spiraling in the right.
it's horrible. So so this is another example on the right. So my point, getting to my point now that I've laid the groundwork, is that each person on the right tends to view what's possible through the lens of their own ability and agency,
Right.
ability, knowledge, and agency, right?
Okay.
I don't see this as an unwinnable war.
Right.
I see conservatives as largely in pursuit of a certainty that's self-destructive, or they need to be confident they're doing the right thing and efficiently, where the left doesn't. They just move in the same direction. So from my standpoint, I see it as an achievable end to get enough people on the right to revolt and win totally. Whereas other people, they look at it, and this is how I see the Northwest guys, who I consider the people I admire most. I see them as sort of on the libertarian side, which is we're just going to separate, and then we'll control this territory because winning over them is not possible, and it's also undesirable. Why do we want the responsibility of managing these broken people?
Right.
Why do we want that? And my version is somewhat in the middle, which is if we create the ability to create devolve power to the local regions, we have explained, then we have the ability to form polities with restoring high trust manners, ethics, morals, and laws. And the people will just fucking leave.
Right.
Right. And then the
Right.
good people that are in the blue cities will come to our cities and we'll have healthy cities again. So these are just strategies for what can be achieved. Now, I'm able to think and organize things on a large scale. So, because this is what I do, so I'm okay with it. If all you can think about is I can only manage myself, and other people are not trustworthy or confusing or differ from me, and because they differ, they're confusing, right? Or they make me feel vulnerable. Those people have to go become preppers. And if you have people that say, okay, I can get along with like-minded people and I want to build a community just for us, they can become secessionists, right? And then there's people that say, I'm willing to work for a political solution that settles this with the enemy by a resolution of differences that returns power to the
Right.
localities so we can have it. And then there's people like me who said, I think winning is actually fairly easy if I can get 2 million guys to show up at once.
So
And
what
so,
I'd say is this is what we will
did that arc make sense, what I just said
Yes.
there? Yes.
Yes. And well, the way I see it, and I was thinking of our staff meeting on Thursday, which is the psychological profile of each of those groups is to be understood and then catered to. So that
Correct.
each group finds its own location in that spectrum
Uh-huh.
in alliance with the other groups in other parts of the spectrum, so that we're all moving together in our own direction.
Correct. So that's what I was trying to summarize. Thank you very much for getting to the point. I guess
No, but the purpose of me saying that, the
you and
purpose
Brandon are competing for jumping ahead to me.
we're like arcing early, man, no doubt. It's like this is high voltage. We got to get on the ticket here. But it's like I really enjoy the fellows who are focused on the psychology to make those points clear, because it really is astounding to watch, because it's like they can do it fast because they've pre-charged their cortex to provide answers on those dimensions, which are easy. That's easy. They can do it.
Hold that thought, because I need you to explain that, because I didn't get it. I just want to summarize with my point being that I don't think everybody should follow what I want. I don't think that everybody should follow the isolationist and territorial capture. That's what the
Right.
best guys are doing, which I love. I don't think everybody should follow the prepper method. And I think we should what's the prepper method? There's one in the middle there, which is the small community method, the insular community.
Yes.
Yeah, sure, the insular community. So I missed that one. So the prepper, the insular community, the concentrate and separate community, and separate and secede community. The agree the create enough stress to cause a devolution of the federal government so we can voluntarily separate, and then the conquest strategy, which is the extreme version that we could do, and that conquest is the one where we take all the money back and we kick the hooligans out, and we basically make blue cities into city states with their own low trust ethics, manners, and morals and government.
If that's what they want to do, that's okay.
That's what they want to do, but we do it we do it defensively so that they cannot.
So the issue will be this is I'm saying get the psychology of the people that are in that spectrum aligned with their own group, and then show them how we're all working together in the same common direction.
Correct. that's that's what we have to achieve. And what's going to continue to happen is everybody is going to try to recruit for their own team,
Yes,
right? And that's going to make no sense. What needs to make sense is recruit for your own team for the people that are biased to your own team.
that's
Right? They're going to try to, well, my way is better. No, your way
no,
isn't.
right. No. So it's like, yeah, right. It's the issue is to put them into an orchestrated functionality between them.
What do you want? I mean, I like war. I want to go to war. I mean, so I'm all for that. I just watched your reaction and I'm thinking I said something wrong there Brad didn't like. But I'm okay with going to war, revolution war. But I'd prefer not to. I'd prefer the settled one. And
Well,
all right, I'm not going to become a prepper. I'm certainly not going to join an isolated community because I don't think on those scales. I
I understand you, and I understand you.
So we all have to sort into the kind of community that we feel that we best serve the
That's
interest
right.
of the community.
That's right. And then recognize the I think of the North Star, which is the Axia Mundi, the general pattern by which all of us can succeed based upon our own little area of expertise and bias and preference and psychological intuitions, I guess. And we can support each other in our differences on the right. Because the prepper would prefer not to have to employ his preps. Okay? Just as the warrior would prefer to have a peaceful existence in his strength. So we just align them all up because it's like the prepper doesn't think the warrior's a problem, right? And it's just a matter of causing that. I don't think this is a hard problem, to be honest. I really don't.
Well, it's a hard enough problem because, you know, the people I feel closest to are the Northwest people, right? I mean,
Right?
they've got National Socialism the way it was meant to be, not the fascism that it resulted in being. They understand what that meant, and they understand they agree with rule of law, which is what we do, and they just want to have a high trust, ethnically homogenous, you know, racially, culturally homogenous polity that maintains the European high trust tradition. And they're right, you know, I don't, but this idea that what I don't like is when we say, I don't want to say, don't do that. I say, do that.
That's
Well,
right.
who's the guy that thinks I'm a Fed? What's his name? I've been in it. I actually love this guy. And he's like a paranoid child that, so when he's talking to me, I don't understand, right?
Here's what I have to say about Kurt being a Fed. This is my official position, just for the audience and anybody who's paying attention. Is if Kurt were a Fed, I think he would be paid more.
Yeah.
We would be getting a lot more support from somewhere that could not be seen.
Well, I got to tell you that when I was working for the so-called intelligence organization, the compensation was just fine. Thank you very freaking much. Right? I mean,
That's a sign. That's a bad sign, Kurt.
well, no, I'm trying to say, I mean, I don't hide anything.
I understand.
If I'm not transparent, then people make up nonsense that's 5 times worse or 10 times worse than actually happened.
Wait, I gotta say this. It's not dependent on the transparency because they're gonna make shit up anyway, man. I will tell a story now because this is a very fun story.
Wait. Are we gonna blow?
We're almost there. I just had this a little
okay.
entertaining diversion.
Okay, let's have our entertained diversion.
So we
Does it have strippers involved in beer?
Well, maybe.
Okay.
That's to maintain interest, right? Just leave the little teaser out there. We purchased our medical practice in 2006 from a Romanian doctor who moved to the United States. And he was a very cagey character. And this guy, I love this man. He was in Romania, and his father got taken away in the dark of night one night when he was a teenager. And he went outside to confront the people who were taking his dad, and they broke his face. Okay? Because you don't question the secret police or whoever these guys were. And so he said, well, he never saw his dad again. And they took him to a doctor who fixes faces, because they had doctors to fix faces back in the day because they had frequently broken faces. That's what they did. So remembering that, he told us he was very secretive. He did not like telling people what he was up to. So he's like, he didn't tell anybody that he sold the practice to us. He was just like, oh, I just got these guys here. And then one day he comes and tells us, he says, you can tell them now, tell them some story, and tell them all something different, and they will talk. Okay? And it has nothing to do with reality. They're going to just make up noise, and it just makes a smoke screen, and he does whatever he wants and gets away with it. That's the story, right? It's disinformation, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at. It's like they're going to talk.
I used to make if I was going to send out a document to the partners, right, which is a large group of people. I don't remember how many it was. It was a large group of people. And so, because leaks did happen, what I would do is I would slightly change something in every document.
So you could find the leak.
And then individually mail them out. And I could always find the leak. And sometimes it would leak like within 5 minutes.
Wow.
It was always women. Always women. Can't help themselves. Cannot control themselves. Unbelievable. Women who need attention cannot control themselves.
Mm.
Guys will leak bits over time because they're trying to maintain, what do you call it? Trust with other guys. So they give them some little bit. So, and I remember being at because I ran these big management meetings, right? These the working sessions. And the women in the back row, and I'm not going to mention her name, she's a psycho. She hates me. Says something, you don't trust us. I'm like saying, it's not. And I'm like, what the fuck you want me to say? You know, I remember one time I was talking to this because it's a big auditorium, right? And so we have them all lined up on desks, right? Sometimes it's a square and sometimes it's rows. And so I'm sitting there with them in this auditorium, and I remember that I said something. I went upstairs, 15, 20 minutes later, and I walked back to my office, and somebody asked me a question that I just, it only took 5 minutes to get out of one of those mouths and upstairs, So I have really excellent ways of dealing with this kind of stuff, which is basically public exposure. Right. You let everybody know who's leaking and what they're doing, and that this isn't okay, and it's extremely humiliating. So it shuts down very quickly.
But this question of trust is quite kind of interesting, because it's like this. I hear people talk about it a lot. They're like, I don't trust that person. I'm like, that's not an appropriate answer, because it's not a binary function.
Mm-hmm.
Trust is not a binary function. It's a spectral function. It's like,
yes.
Question is, trust with what?
Yes, exactly.
Because I'll trust you with almost everybody with minuscule.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
That's okay. Some people I trust to do negative things if I'm not watching them, so that I keep an eye on them, because that's how much I trust them. Right? And it's okay. It's just, but what trust with what is the question that should be thought whenever we talk about trust.
My thing did its thing again.
Yes, it did. See, then I'm supposed to do this.
What's the deal? Usually I open this thing and it doesn't.
Kurt, did we cover that?
No.
There, you did it.
So I would say this guy, his name is Eric, and he if he some people know what I'm talking about. They're setting up little communities, right? They're
Yeah.
almost like trying to set up Amish, the equivalent of Amish or Christian sort of community.
Okay.
And they should do that. That's
Yes.
fantastic, right?
Yes.
Um, the prepper thing, if it's like I want to have enough ammo, that's great.
Right.
If it's I'm gonna hide in the hills, that's silly because there's
Well,
just
it's
too
the
many,
mountain men, right?
right? That's not gonna happen.
It's
So
okay. They can do that. It's
it,
okay. They're okay.
exactly what I'm saying, fine, do it. I don't think that's gonna work, but fine. All right. Then, there's the people who are organizing sort of these community groups, right? That kind of thing. And there's people doing the setting up, well, let's take this region of it.
Right.
I think these are all groups, and I think you made the point is that we just need to get the message out that people should sort into
Yes.
the way that they want, and there's plenty of people to go around, so to speak.
Well, no, it's like, here's the trick. The trick is this is there's lots of people and they have preferences and biases, and they should act on those preferences and biases as long as they're in concert with the rest of us that are not doing the exact same thing.
Yes.
And they should not promote or negatively promote the activities of other aligned groups. That's
Yep.
all. It's a simple message. And I think that they will agree, because I watch them fight with each other. And I watched the people fighting with Doug Morrison in the Northwest there, and it's kind of interesting.
Why? He's like the dumbest guy to fight with because he's like never wrong.
He never fights, man. He's just like, you're a loser and go away.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the right answer.
Doug's right. Just deal with it, right? And so I view it, what they're doing and what I'm doing, we're doing, as totally commensurable, right? I mean,
That's
if we
right.
succeed, they succeed. If they succeed, we succeed. What's the worst that happens is they succeed, we go there, right? If we succeed, then it's easier for them to do what they want.
That's right. So we promote their activity, and they get to do what they want, and that's their domain, and we're let them have their domain and exercise their will in there. That's
Yep.
perfect sovereignty.
But I say the same thing for Eric. What's his last name?
Huh.
I can't bring it up. I should know this. I support the heck out of what they're doing because it's not like there's people who are grifters, right?
Right.
I care about the guys are the real deal.
That's right.
He's the real deal. I mean, he's a real, God-fearing, Jesus-loving
Good.
Christian, and who puts family first. And damn, I'm all for that. Go ahead.
That's right. Go for it.
So anybody who wants to be active, I think we should support activism regardless of where on the spectrum they're going, because people pursue the agency they feel they're capable of, right? I mean, if that's what you feel like you can handle yourself,
That's
you
right.
be a prepper. If you're going to be, I can handle a small community, you're going to be, go somewhere and set up a group, that kind of thing. If you feel like you can handle a territory, then you're going to go and do that. So,
So the issue will be this: to help the people find their spot inside the spectrum there. That's what we should be providing. Help the people find their spot and the appropriate contacts within that spectrum of people that are properly aligned with one another to achieve our common goals,
Yep.
even though we do it by different means.
That's correct. So, I think we've made our point here. Have we made our point here?
I believe we have.
The next thing I want to talk about is the movie has come out, and so the movie Civil War has come out, which I saw. Because I get to see things like that. So I saw that movie, and what's happening, of course, is that we're seeing a whole bunch of people right now realize I put out Civil War is going to happen, and here's how we win, right? That's what I took out, right? But I've been doing this. When I started doing that, people told me I was high, right? You're delusional. Now it's a common expectation. of course, I view Rudyard and I being on the same page, and he's put out 3 or 4 videos now
Yes.
on the coming Civil War, because that's what he does. He started out as an alternative history, so he thinks
Yes.
fields of possibilities and then lays out the evidence for the field of possibilities. And so his stuff is material. I work for mine. My stuff is material. But there's been like 5 or more different YouTubers come out with why the right won't win, why a civil war will never happen. They're absolutely vacuous. There's no content in them at all. They're giving examples of revolutions in history. And I'm like, some of them are like, do you think it's going to be like the American Civil War where there's sides, or the
Right.
French Revolution? It's going to be more like anything like the Russian Revolution, except that was the cities against the people, and this time it'd be the people against the cities, right? I mean, that's the same time, and it won't be like there's sides. It's going to be a house-to-house warfare on general principles until there's some organized way of finding settlement. And I mean, I couldn't, because I have, and I promised I won't do this. I could write up off the top of my head how to win this with ease, and it doesn't take any organization at all, right? And so and I'm not the only guy who thinks this, right? We all talk about X generation warfare. That's Lind, right? That's his Bollywick, and he's like, no, I mean, all they're gonna, I mean, if the right did, all they did was set up checkpoints on the highway, it would be over. So there's just think of it. We can't control a territory like Iraq or Afghanistan. We can't control a city like Mosul. Right? We had to put concrete walls around the damn place, right? And basically do the reverse of a walled
Siege.
fortress,
To
right?
siege.
A reverse siege, right? We box them in instead of box the opposition out in order to win that. Our guys are 4 losses and 0 wins against guys in flip-flops with AK-47s, and in territories that are this big.
Yeah.
And you think that you're gonna do anything with, I mean, look at our military. It's supposedly 2 million people, but really it's 200,000.
Yeah.
And all the fighting's done by special forces. Now, even then, can the government use the military against the people? Well, no. It can only facilitate, the government can only facilitate a cooperation with police. It's not allowed. So if they do that, then there's legitimacy. And I told you what I learned in Ukraine is the minute they shoot you, you win. Because imagine America is based on a promise and a legitimacy, right? That the revolution would undermine and aggression would end, because it would no longer be that America was any different from Russia or Iran, right? Or China. So, winning, and just tactically, the tactical means of winning is just good old boys and a few pickup trucks. I mean, it's just because you grind. I mean, look what I don't think do people remember? Anyway, I don't know if I can give an example that people remember, but you can tear down the freaking economy of the United States in a heartbeat, right? And we don't have stores. Look what happened to us on toilet paper, for Christ's sake.
Oh my.
We don't have stores of stuff. People can't just go out like they can in Russia, because grandma and grandpa and mom and dad have a little farm out there, it's a couple of acres, but I mean, you can feed a family on a couple of acres permanently, right? So we don't have that capacity. We don't have people who are like the people in the Middle East who can live on some rice and beans and some other stuff and don't need air conditioning or
Which means that what this means is that this demands a quick settlement.
exactly, and that's what my point is, that it won't they have to. It's not like people don't know, right? The reason Obama did all the stuff he did in his administration was because people understood what was happening. So this whole strengthening of the federal government is in preparation for the obvious. And so, I mean, I'm like, there are the big problem I see with our military still, even despite dealing with the the flip-flop guys, is that they think in combined arms and concentration of forces, and they're still in the Vietnam versus
That's
World War
fighting
II
the
model.
last war.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's not going to be like that. I mean, look at the Syrian civil war. It's fucking house to house. Look at I mean, look what happened. I mean, we took out Gaddafi, and look what turned into Libya. It's
exactly what Gaddafi said would happen if you took him
exactly
out.
right. So so people, in other words, the economy is like a squirrel cage, right? The
Okay.
faster the squirrels are running, the cheaper everything is.
Right.
But it's really easy to stop the squirrel cage. And then everything gets really expensive and slow.
Yes.
So if, I'm going to give an example, okay? I'm not advocating this.
Oh my, I'm getting uncomfortable.
I'm not going to give an example, or I'm going to give it an abstract example, not a concrete example.
I understand.
I have written the concrete example. I'm not going to use
Share
it.
it.
So the abstract example is a city above the Mason-Dixon line in winter without power
Yes.
has days worth of food,
Yes.
right? Do you know that's
I understand.
and making that happen is trivial,
Yes.
absolutely trivial.
I understand.
So, somebody like me, if this war gets out, somebody like me, not me, not saying I'm going to do this, I'm getting a little old for this stuff, is going to just write down those plans. And they're going to just send them out chaotically to whomever, email, whatever. Do it like the IRA did, because I mean, I was around back then and I had one of those packages, right? Do what the IRA did. And, you just hand this stuff off and it just happens. In other words, you don't have to control it at all. You just have to give good old boys an idea of how to have fun, right? And they will. And and you look what I mean, Jesus, look what happened. Happening in Russia, right? And they have the most oppressive management over their country. I mean, their army is actually internal. What are you looking at me with that look for? You don't like what I'm saying?
I'm satisfied with the finalization of this arc.
Okay, you want me to shut up is what you mean. And so I'm kind of annoyed by the fact that I started out saying this is going to happen. This is why I'm annoyed. This is going to happen. Let's not let it happen. Let's provide a solution so that it doesn't happen.
Right.
And then the reason I got in trouble is I said, no, you guys think this can't happen, but let me show you how it could happen. That's what got me in trouble.
Okay.
Right. In other words.
That's right. We understand one another.
Right. So, so that's great. So, I mean, trying to explain this to FBI and they're like,
I've had them in my office. It's uncomfortable.
I actually enjoyed it. I mean, I loved them. I don't know.
It's
So
just like, it's an unusual circumstance, and it's like, okay, nothing good can come out of this. The best that can come out of this is nothing happens.
well, I know the law and I know what I'm doing. I mean, if they say we don't
Right.
want you to inspire anybody, that's just to say, okay, well, I can. I mean, I didn't break the law, and I know because I know the law. But
That's
it
right.
said you should, if you inspire somebody, then we're going to
That's
have a problem.
problematic. Yeah.
Right? I'm like, okay, well, I can not do that. I can stop writing like that so it won't inspire anybody. But my point was that I wanted to make the possibility real enough so that we would have we could reach a settlement. So it bothers me with these nitwits coming out making vacuous videos telling people that it's not going to happen or it can't happen or the right can't win. Is I'm
I
like,
know. So I regard
you're actually working to make the war happen.
they're just propagandists, and they're not to be taken seriously or even paid too much attention to, in my opinion. They're not worth the attention time. CPU time, it's not worth it.
All right. So
Oh,
now we've got a couple of really good segments here.
you can break it up any way you like.
If I have time to break it up. Anyway,
We should call this a wrap.
I just was about to say, are you ready to?
No, but I have to jump the gun so that I can maintain my competitive nature with Brandon.
Oh, I see. I understand.
You see how it works.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is when I will have my moment to shine a little bit. When I suggest to the nice people who are paying attention to this little video to hit like and maybe subscribe, and really do hit the notification bell, because Kurt wants to see it. You be notified, and then leave comments.
Yes. I'm not going to add anything.
Thank you, Kurt.
This time. All right. Love you all. Today is Saturday, April 13th, 2024. It's been a chat session on the topics of the age. And next, I suppose we're going to do a working session now.
I hope so.
I don't know if my brain will handle it, but we'll try. All right.
You good?